Hello, everyone, and welcome to another the. I am your host, Sean L. I would like to thank Joshua theme song for the Eternal X Wolf. Click on and find out all the stuff that he has made, and he's actually working on an album as well. So definitely go check out Joshua Robert. Thank you so much for all to go to Broadhead Man, and I seen a lot of people there this weekend. One of them was Mr. Bill Walter himself. He's the one that on Manor put on one heck of a show this weekend for sure. Also, from All Access Network were there as well. Nathaniel Elwell and Morgan Caldwell was there. Miss Christina Bloom. So we have met the I got one I'm going to say just toward the end because there's a reason why. Mr. Greg Koss and Derek McFadden. Cheryl Hensley Torres from Illinois Paranormal Research and her group as well was there. We also had Richard Van Netta, Tom Sappington, Tiffany Conley. Let's see. Miss Jamie Lynn Keller. We can't forget her as well. But also, one person. We had Miss Gwen Johns there. And Miss Gwen Johns actually participated in the bearded contest this weekend. And this is what it looked like. Let's see here. Hang on. I got to take this one down. And this is what she looked like. She did really good. I thought she did really cool. But I did remember one thing. I think I've seen her before in a TV series. One of our most famous TV series when I was growing up. The Addams Family. I think it was Cousin Ed. They kind of looked alike. She'll probably kill me for doing it, but I had to. I like joking with Gwen, but it was all for a good cause, and they donated all the money for a kid's charity, so it was definitely well worth it. Also, tonight, backstage, we have Mr. Thomas Patrick Gormley. He does the podcast for All Access Network Television and several other little things he does it for as well. And he does profiles. So we're going to talk to him tonight about a little bit of everything, and might get on a couple topics, and hopefully they'll help you out tonight as well. I mean, I've seen a lot of people experience these, and he's got a lot of great information. And some of the shows that I've watched, he's been spot on with everything. I like what he does, and he's done criminal psychology for a long time as well. And we'll get into some stuff for sure. So let's bring on Mr. Thomas Patrick Gormley.
Hey, how you doing, my buddy Sean?
I'm doing fine. We've got some guests here in the lobby already. We've got Miss Cheryl Hensley Torres. I showed a picture of her just recently.
Nice.
Derek McFadden's in the house. Gwen Johns in the house. Like I said, we had to make a little fun with her because she knows I like to joke with her.
Well, she's about as tall as Cousin Ed, too. So
yeah, that's what tripped it off in the glasses. Glasses when she was sitting there, and I was like, man, no, it just clicked. It. So, like I said, Derek McFadden's in here, and etc. But how you been doing, Thomas?
Been doing great. We had an event over the weekend at Haunted Hillview Manor. Again, a lot of people don't know they were broken into. They're still trying to find the culprits that were caught on camera. A lot of damage done there. They're still trying to fix their roof. It's a 100-year-old building. They got a lot of events coming up there. So www.hauntedhillviewmanor.com. Please donate. Again, I got the Connecticut Paracon coming up on July 11th, the Connecticut Witch and Culture Festival, August 8th and 9th, and of course, the big Salem Paranormal and Horror Fest, November 14th. Litter in a few other things that my healing collective called Wardruna will be speaking all over the country during spooky season. We got anywhere from Cleveland, New Orleans, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, you name it. We're all around bringing the message that there's something different for everybody out there in the paranormal coming up.
For sure. Can you explain about Wardruna a little bit before we get into some of our topics?
Well, Wardruna, we are kind of joined into the paranormal community, but it isn't just the paranormal community. What we deal with is a lot of times people are seeking healing and assistance from it. And some people have this stigma of going to a psychologist or anybody like that. So a lot of times we found over the years that people come to psychics or mediums trying to get answers. So our job is to see that and break down the stigma and put them into line with people that are in our Rolodex that do believe maybe in the paranormal, anything like that, so people aren't judged, to be able to get that assistance. So we have psychologists on staff. We've done work with the Cleveland Clinic, the VA, you name it. We've pretty much assisted a lot of people. We're right in the middle of something right now that's pretty huge. That's going to be a big impact. I can't talk about it because there's some legal ramifications that are part of it, but it's a good thing. We've basically, I'll just put it shortly, we helped with a case where there was drug use going on and they claimed demon, and we swooped in and got them help and saved some children. So that's kind of what went on with that. We look at things because a lot of people have to realize is probably 95% of the time people's hauntings are trauma, and we want to try and get to the load of that. So we have all these practitioners. We have the biggest collection of shamans probably in the world, all part of our group with different walks of life. So we're pretty excited about it. We'll be talking more about that out on the road. I don't want to give away the whole talk. But
Sure.
There's a lot of big names in the industry that are connected to it, and people start finding out more soon.
Yeah, definitely so. I know you guys do great work, and I've heard you talk on several shows about it. Mm-hmm. And I wish you the best with all that as well, because it does seem like you're helping a lot of people that actually do need it. So that's awesome. I know you've been on my show before with supernaturals and serial killers as well. Mm-hmm. And we've talked a little bit about you being linked to the Warrens at one time. Yeah. And your experience with them as well. And and now you're doing criminal profiling. I mean, you're doing more of it as a podcast, informing people of how to keep an eye out for things going on around them. And I've actually helped produce a couple of your shows, and we've gotten to some great conversations about, keeping an eye out for certain things. And, especially when safety is involved and young kids. And that's detrimental nowadays. I mean, because it's not like when we were growing up in the 80s and we could run around and have to be home when the light comes on, but things have changed so much drastically. And, I think people should be well informed. And I think you do a good job when you talk about some of the topics you talk about as well.
It is. And a lot of people have to understand with the information, there's a lot of information out there, but still comes down to it takes a village. It takes our loved ones. It takes our family. It takes school teachers. It takes our friends to watch our back when we're out having a good time and all that, knowing who we're getting involved with, knowing the red flags to look out for, the behaviors, the signs, the tells that people give off. I don't want anybody to think that, geez, you got to be a nervous wreck when you go out somewhere, but it is just being aware of the little things. is always a big thing. And don't put yourself in a situation. Always when you go out, have a buddy with you. Anything that will assist in staying away from something like that. I've said before, you got to realize in your lifetime, you'll come into contact directly or indirectly with the 33 serial killers or mass murderers, anything like that. So it is a potential there. And it's not a very big potential. It's just like winning the lottery sometimes, I guess. I don't want to put that connotation on it. But you have to realize something is the show that I do is, like you said, it's there to educate and show people how to look for things, how a profiler picks things apart, how people's brains work, how people come to that point to have that lightning in a bottle where that catalyst from trauma growing up turns them to be a serial killer notoriously. But it's also looking out for our kids, making sure that they grow up, you could overparent and underparent. So there's no rule book on how to do it properly, but you keep a roof over their head, you keep them fed, you help them, find the right education so they know themselves. But you're there, you got to give them love. You got to love them. I think that's the most important part, and love them properly. What that properly is, I wish we knew. I wish there was a book to tell us exactly how to protect our kids.
No doubt.
Unfortunately, we give them the best tools that we know from our own upbringing and what we know. And that's why I do the show. Maybe I could tell you something from my experience, my life experience, to give to you that might say, hey, maybe this is another way I want to approach my child's problem that they're having. And hopefully that works. Or to somebody that might look and see, hey, that doesn't make sense, where they do something that avoids them getting into a situation, which I know the last show that we did, somebody from Little Rock, Arkansas had written the show and said because she watched a certain episode that she possibly avoided being a victim, so which is important to us.
Yeah, I also remember you guys had a show when you were with Letriana Brown and Blaine and Gwen, yes, Gwen.
Yeah.
Tongue-tied right now. And some of the situations that Letriana went through.
Yeah.
And that was very dramatic, but I feel, the way she explained things, it helped them out. I mean, you guys got a lot of responses out of that show that night as well.
That was a very powerful show. And what Letriana did was textbook on how to get out of the situation. She was taking down notes when they would leave, when they would eat, when they would sleep. And that's all the important part of being able to get out of there and knowing when to take that run for it when it presents itself. Really when you get into the situation she was in, that's the last resort. Not everybody really survives that. Usually when you're taking hostage like that, the most you're going to make it is 48 hours. And unfortunately, in some of these situations with some of these monsters that are walking out there amongst us.
Most definitely. I know we kind of talked a little bit before the show, and I know it's a little short notice, but, we talked about manipulation. And one of the guys that stand out in mind that actually manipulates people was Aleister Crowley.
Mm-hmm.
And he seemed to be the mastermind of manipulating people. And I noticed a lot lately, young people seem to be getting manipulated. I mean, males do it to the female partners and vice versa. It's just not one-sided. So I'm not pointing out anybody in general. But, how do you determine and how do you start digging into things and when to cut it off maybe? I mean, because they keep digging these and making promises, or they do things to make you think that it's going to be right.
Yeah. It's such an onion to peel back, Sean. It really is, because a lot of people, it's that you have to see it before the relationship even gets going. Because once you get in it, it's almost like we talk about, I'm going to be talking about next Thursday is the mind control of cults. So this is kind of along that line, so you have a little preview of that. A lot of times with women and men, that first initial visit, they're going to love bomb each other. They're going to say, oh, you're the best, all this other stuff. And they haven't really known each other. It's that first love and all that. And that's really when the tentacles go in.
Yeah, when the hormones and everything start tripping, and and trying to make that bond, trying to make that connection with that person. Mm-hmm. And that's when, like you said, things start sinking in.
Yeah, and a lot of times with some of the biggest manipulators or narcissists, or it goes both ways for men and women, it is that initial, I need to get something out of this, all right, this relationship. So you supposedly, oh, I really like this guy, or I like this girl and all that, and the love bombing happens, and they're doing things for each other, and really it starts building. But then slowly they start chipping away. The manipulation starts chipping away, where they'll say, we're going to go out tonight. Well, my friend's going to come. How about it just be us tonight? Where they start pushing away your friends, where that's your base, your borderline, the ones that are going to tell you, hey, something's wrong here. So a manipulator is going to want to try and get rid of the friends, get rid of the family where anybody's talking in their ear, so they could focus in and all that and be able to control. So that's the whole thing on how they're going to try and control. And a lot of the gaslighting kind of thing that comes through. With gaslighting, it's almost like telling somebody, that didn't happen. To the point where you're brainwashing, just like they'll do in a cult, and people do in a relationship on a singular basis, where you want to control somebody because of stuff that happened to you growing up, how you learn from your parents, your peers around you, and some of these people with antisocial disorder behaviors and how they treat relationships. There are serial killers that had families. Think about that manipulation. They're killing people at night while you sleep and come home, and then you find, oh my God, my dad or my mom is a serial killer.
Most definitely.
Manipulation there. You're making up a story that mask is on. So really, what's the depth? It's very hard, especially nowadays. There's so much information out there, and it's almost like that effect with the manipulation is, like I said, the love bombing, the gaslighting and all that, to the point where you're stuck. They have you so tight in believing that, okay, if I leave, or if I go be back with my family or my friends, and I'm going to lose everything and something bad's going to happen. So it's always the negative thought. So you get this person thinking that no matter what I do, there's just going to be negative talk in my head. Because
I think that's probably when the stories start getting twisted and manipulated among the families, to cover up what's actually going on.
Well, exactly. It's the same way with some narcissistic parents, and out in the public eye, everybody's like, oh yeah, they're the best person in the world, but behind the scenes, they're beating the crap out of each other. There's abuse going on, and again, a lot of the manipulation, people that are around it are very surprised when they see what's actually going on. But that's why when some of these manipulators, again, like I said, want to push out family, want to push out friends, so they don't see it. And they're able to talk them out of it, because that mind control. So when one person is pinpointed in on you doing all this and there's no outside interference, it's easier for them to control. Because then you have to have somebody on the outside that loves you enough to say, hey, something's wrong here. You need to look at it this way. Even if they fight you, you want to plant the seed and all that. And being a parent and all that, you want your kids to be safe. You want them to find love. You don't want them to have these situations. But again, you hopefully raise them to be able to see those red flags or take that into consideration, and you wish you could keep them safe from everything, but nothing is 100%. And I wish it was, because it's very you go to sleep at night always worrying about your kids or your family or friends or anything like that are possibly in these situations because you're witnessing it. Is your opinion right? I don't know. It might be some of your trauma, and you're putting it on them. You're projecting of what you see from what happened to you. It may not be that way, but you do want to make sure that you're around to see, and just sometimes you just have to sit back and be somebody that listens to that person, and maybe you could pick up on something. Because my thing is when somebody is being manipulated like that, if I go in and say, hey, they're doing this, and that, and they're still in that love or captured type of state, they're not going to really listen to you. You know what I mean? It's almost like they're in the cult, the cult of manipulation and control.
And sometimes probably that person feels like they can probably try to fix that person, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing is you always, I could fix them. You can't. The only person unfortunately, even in a relationship, the person you're most responsible for is the person looking back at you in the mirror. You take care of you and what your traumas are and what you're going through and get that help, then you're going to recognize more things. You have to have your own power and all that. You have to have the power of yourself. And when you do, you exude that. Then you draw the right people to you, or you draw the wisdom and the knowledge to see something's wrong and say, hey, that's crossing my boundaries, and hit it in the bud right off the bat. Mm-hmm. But the thing is you have to have the strength in yourself, in your mind, to see something's wrong and to have the strength and the wisdom and to reach out and ask for help and be able to just get up and leave. There's so many programs out there, for battered women and things like that, to get out of the situation. Station and I in our group Ordruna deals with this all the time. There's people that come to us all the time, and we give them advice, but we don't tell them what to do. They have free will. Mm-hmm. You have to plant the mustard seed and say, hey, if you go see this person, you'll hear something different. And then hopefully it clicks and they get the help they need and they get out of the situation, before something really terrible happens. A third party, as you're telling me something, I could see it more than you can because you're in the situation. When you're in it, you don't necessarily see it, but you have to be a listening ear. You got to say, just sit by and tell me what's going on, and say, oh, that sounds like my friend so-and-so, and this is what they did. When you use a different person where you don't say you should do this, you want to do, it's like the Joneses. Jones buys a new car, everybody wants to buy a new car after that. So if I tell you, hey, Mr. Jones down the street went through the same thing and this is what they did, you're more apt to take that advice and maybe take that path to see how it works for you and if it could get you out of the situation or recognize that red flag you're missing.
So that leads me to a question. As the person being the manipulator, and it probably stems back to the family and what happened, I'm sure. But what keeps them going? What keeps them wanting to not change? I mean, is it a drive? Is it an attachment? Is it, them having that power to manipulate people and they just want to keep doing it?
It is. Some of them treat it as a game. It's a game to them. It gives them an adrenaline rush. A lot of these manipulators actually pick fights just to pick fights. They'll just say, you know what, you didn't put the peanut butter on my sandwich right. Now I'm mad and I'm going to yell at you. And then I'm going to manipulate you and make you feel bad. So I have control over you where you're hoping that, he's not going to yell at me or anything like that. That's what they do. And it's a game to them. It's an antisocial disorder behavior, it's almost like a psychopathy in a way, but it's a terrible thing. And this happens more than anybody thinks. Some people up and they didn't get enough attention. So to get that attention is they demand the attention and they control the attention now because they don't take this the wrong way. Some of the people are getting manipulated, but they look at you as weak. and able to take advantage of you. It's the same thing, you know. I'm not going to walk up to a guy who's 6'6" and start a fight with him. So these people, they're really, when they get to know you, they're like, okay, this is the one I can manipulate. That's all they're thinking about, really. And it's unfortunate. You want to hopefully find the right person, but I think that happens, like I told you before, when you look at your own trauma. Sometimes you attract these people because of your own trauma. It almost like meshes in and all that. You want to avoid that. You want to level yourself up. You want to bring that vibration up by healing yourself. If you have a relationship and it ends, you know, everybody's, oh, it's their fault. No. You got to look at yourself. How did this happen? How do I heal myself from this? We could blame everybody we want. We don't want them, you know, paying rent in our brain anymore. We made the decision to leave. We made the decision to walk away. So what do I do now? Okay, I'm in this mode where I keep dating the same people. What's going on with me? What ancestral trauma happened to me where I keep repeating this? So what I have to do is I have to, you know, heal what's wrong. Go see somebody, get the therapy that you need, see yourself, love yourself, what you see in the mirror and all that. And then when you level up and you understand yourself a little bit more, that soul retrieval, where that trauma goes away and you fill it with something more positive, then you're going to attract the better thing, and you're going to be more aware of the type of people that are around you and who you surround yourself with, and those boundaries, how they grow when you get to know who you are a little bit more.
Most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a shame. I mean, like I said, and we were talking before the show, that, you know, I see a lot of this next generation and the way they treat each other, and it's a manipulation factor in some ways. As like you said, they find the person that they can get along with, they find their weak points, and they just extort them. Yeah. And it's a shame. I mean, it's sad to see somebody go through that stuff.
It's just crazy. Just all the generations and how they go. I'm not going to be that guy that says, yeah, I walked uphill school both ways in snow and all this other stuff. But the thing is, you could see how the generations change and what the catalyst is as it changes. You know, we go in and how our parents were, and then parents after wars happen, where there's more of that facing what they saw, the evils that they face, what we're protected against. You know, the old Generation X that we grow up in, where we just went out, and when the lights started dimming, we went back home. But they can't even do that nowadays. There's so many crazy people out there, but a lot of people don't realize is back in the 70s, 80s, when we were growing up, that's the high point of serial killers and things like that, the bad things that are out there. But there's so much information out there that almost like our whole media is manipulating us almost in a way, where we're so afraid of everything, you know, that we've lost track of who we are. I think it's just a society of chaos sometimes, and it's so hard. And that's why for us at Wardruna, we see that chaos, and we want to bring it and put you in front of the mirror and say, hey, this is a good person. You don't need to listen to all the noise that they say. We need you, you know, bring yourself back, calm, what's going on, and then hopefully help you make that, you know, informed decision on your own free will to make some changes to help you out. Is it foolproof? No, because you have to do the work. So many people nowadays are not willing to do the work to go forward, especially almost like in our industry with the paranormal. There's a lot of people that they like doing all this stuff, but, you know, they have a hard time doing the work, and it just creates more trauma for themselves. I just think us being involved in the paranormal is good, because I really believe a lot of people get involved in the paranormal because they have traumas. They're chasing their own demons. They're chasing their own ghosts.
I can see that. I can definitely see that for sure.
And I think that's why it's important that our group Wardruna is part of the paranormal community. We're somebody that could help, but you have to ask for help. Nobody's going to save you. I hate to tell you that. Nobody's coming to save you. You got to save yourself by asking for help, by looking at the person in the mirror and saying, hey, I need to make some changes, and I need to, humble myself and look for that assistance.
What would be, since you guys do deal with people with trauma and being manipulated at times, what would be some good advice that you would give them in general when they would come up to you and keep making promises and say, hey, babe, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make sure I get a job. I'm going to make sure I do this, and I'm going to keep my promises. But it never, ever comes through because that's part of that manipulation.
Yeah.
When should they start looking and saying, hey, this has been going on? When should be a cutoff point to say, hey, wake up?
Yeah. It's hard to say. You have to really look at it. Oh, I'm going to do this. Are they doing the work to make that change to get to that goal? You can't have a goal and tell somebody, yeah, I'm going to get there, and then not do anything, because guess what? Nothing's going to happen. Whether you love somebody or not, you have to tell them, if you're going to get to that goal and you're going to keep making that promise, what are you going to do to get there? Let me know, and I'll be there to support you. So if they're not willing to do that and all, guess what? Get the hell out. Stop giving people so many chances. If it doesn't feel right, okay, you need to leave. You need to make better decisions. You need to start planning. We all go through this. For myself, being a shaman, once I make a decision that I'm done, I'm done. Yep. That's what shamans do. It's like the time has come. This is what happened. Now it's time to go. And just a lot of people out there know I used to live in Connecticut. I live in Cleveland now. There was a lot of changes in my life and what I went through, and things weren't going the way that were supposed to go in my life. And I made some changes, and, I'm happier now because not only did I have to make those changes with the situation, I had to make changes of the person that was in the mirror and all that. I've been, as of July, I'll be sober for a year. And that was a big change, that needed to happen. I was facing my demons and not making the best decisions. But now that that's clear, because for me, I feel like I've been through that, giving that advice or just sitting next to somebody and saying, hey, this is what occurred, and maybe that'll help. Telling my story, or Stacia telling her story, or anybody in Wardruna telling their story, which we're going to be doing a lot of that soon, where everybody's going to have an article and talk about their story. And I think when people read that, they're going to see that our practitioners have been through what you've been through, and we do have the tools to show you, to help you make that decision on your own to do the work and get out of that situation.
See, that's one thing I've seen too throughout the last several years. I've seen young counselors come into the counseling program to help people, but they have no parental background. Mm-hmm. And they try to help some of these kids understand stuff that they probably did go through, but as a parent, you'd want somebody older with that experience to be able to tell you that. And I don't think some of the younger psychologists in the fields today can understand some of that yet. They only do it by book work.
It is true. I've had this conversation with people, even my father. My father told me when I went off to college and all that, it's just, work hard, but just do it. When you go to college and you graduate, that's just a piece of paper that says you know how to learn. Now go out and apply it. Learn how to apply it, because college, you're not done after that. You still have to do the studies. You have to have world experience. Bring your life experience into it. For me, what I've been through is my college experience, but also how I grew up, my traumas I grew up with, my training as a behaviorist and a profiler, in my work experience, and just being a shaman and how I pick up on things, all three of those things are going at once and intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to react? Am I reacting as a shaman? Do I feel the energy? Am I reacting from my training as a behaviorist? Or is it just something I recognize from my upbringing? And that each day that goes by, something new happens and all that. And that's why it's important. Even Stacia, my better half, has said, even as a tarot card reader, when you get those tarot cards and they're coming through, if you have life experience, you interpret that tarot card for that person in front of you much better than somebody that may not have that life experience or been through it. I'm not saying a 20-year-old doesn't have life experience. They could have gone through a lot. There's a lot of people growing up that have to become adult very quickly. But, you know, when somebody gives those words, you could tell when they've had life experience or they're just reading verbatim from a book. Right? That's like kind of the difference you have to look out for when you're trying to get assistance. And again, you know, finding the right psychologist, or, you know, even I tell people when I run an event, a psychic fair, you know, of course I want them all to go to my better half, you know, so we could keep a roof over our head. It doesn't work that way. I tell people, walk around and see who you pick up energy on, who, you know, talks to you in your head, and go sit with them. That's just with anything, even people we meet, you know. Even when you go into a bar, you know, you're drawn towards somebody. It's that energy and all that you have to look at. And then from there, you got to figure out if they're manipulating you or not.
Most definitely. Yeah. Like I was saying, you know, I know kids have been through a lot, and some of them have been through hell. Don't get me wrong. There's been a lot of kids that's been in the system. They've went through hell going to where they're going. They paid their dues with some of the stuff they've been through. And I mean, they can explain that to another person that's their age, comparing to that person wanting to know they've had it bad, you know, because they've had that experience. I can get that. But like I said, if I was going to ask somebody for experience, I think I would want to go to somebody a little older and be able to sit there and have a communication with them that's saying, hey, you've been through there, you've had this, you've had family, you've had kids, and 9 times out of 10, most likely they probably went through some of the stuff that you've gone through in one way or another.
Exactly. And it's really hard. Yeah, again, you have to see what fits. Some people, if they're having a problem with their parents, they're not going to want to talk to a psychologist that's around the same age as their parents.
Exactly.
You know, that's the trauma that's there. So it's really choosing the situation is the best thing to do. You know, that's probably the hard part of picking up on those types of things and how to get the right help. Sometimes you got to see a few people and something will click in, and it's just like that. And then you start seeing, you know, the layers that you have to peel back and smile at yourself in the mirror, hopefully at that point. But we work on ourselves for the rest of our lives. Nobody's perfect. Nobody knows everything and all that. Nobody's 100%. But we just take the time to do the work, and each day wake up and know that, hey, today, I think I like the way I look a little better in the mirror, and we just keep having to chip away at that.
What would be some of the things that you would let somebody know that's trying to get out of a relationship to try to cheer themselves up, you know, to make them want to walk away in some ways without having to push them?
You know what? It really doesn't matter. I've said this before with people and all that. You have to make the decision for yourself. People could tell you words, keep chirping in your ear, tell you the words. You have to recognize it for yourself. You have to know your worth. Me going through this the rest of my life, is it worth it? Right? Am I worth more? That's what a manipulator wants to break down your worth. You have to stop that, put that boundary up, and realize I got to build my worth back up. And once I build my worth back up, I'm ready to walk away because I know I'm worth more than what I'm getting, and you have to recognize that. Is there a formula, a magic formula for it? No. We all have free will to make that decision. So I could give you the information, It's like I've said this before for a lot of things. If you were a smoker and I tell you quit smoking, when you finally quit smoking, was it because of me? No, because you said it's time for me to stop. He's right. But you still had to make that decision for yourself. You could only save yourself. Nobody else is coming to save you. I'm sorry. It isn't going to happen. You have to save yourself. There's people that will listen and all that, but at the end of the day, like I keep saying, like a broken record, look at yourself in the mirror, because that's the person that's going to make that decision to get you to walk away. You know, you can hear all you want, but you have to make that decision, and you got to make it quickly when it's a bad situation.
For sure. And especially, you know, like I said, you know, seeing people go through this, it drains them mentally, it drains them physically, it drains them emotionally overall, it breaks down their self-esteem in every category to make them feel the way they feel. But the question is, like you said too, how long do you want to put up with that? How long do you really want to keep going on with the situation, feeling terrible, when there could be something so much better out there for you?
Yeah, it's hard. You know, if I had the magic answer, of course, I'd give it to everybody. You know, I wish there was. Everybody has their limits, you know, and they have to know their limits. Some people don't know their limits. They have to learn those. You know, I tell a lot of people, when you are going through this stuff, take a moment. If something bad's going on, just step out of the house for a minute, go for a walk, go to the movies by yourself and all that. If you're starting to feel, I just can't get out of this situation, find a way to do it. Take some time to love yourself. And then when you find that you love yourself and you have worth, that you enjoy going to the movies or you enjoy going out for your walk or into nature, whatever you got to do. I know in some situations, you know, some manipulators are always constantly watching the other half and making sure that they don't go off and do anything. You know, they want to be around at all times. But, you know, just even if it's 10 minutes, just keep chipping away. I'm going to take 10 minutes myself. Yeah, I'm going to go do some yoga for 10 minutes or something like that. You know, that's what you got to do. You got to find time for you to know I'm worth more than what the hell is going on in this house. And you have to take those moments to show that you're worth it and all that. I know there's some people, they have a manipulating relationship, but they do have that moment where it's not as bad to the point where, hey, they could go on vacation with some friends and then realize that, hey, I'm worth more than what's going on. And a lot of people, it's always, oh, you broke me and my wife up and all this other stuff. No, it doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. In the relationship, that's what it's about. It's a private relationship. You know, you talk about so much, but you do confide in people, but there's two sides to every story, and that's what you have to be careful of, especially as a friend. You know, if I know you're in a relationship, and I do know what you're talking about is what you're going through, some people manipulate their friends to make it look like they have a bad relationship when they don't. So that's the other manipulation. Friends, like, you know, they've been downers their whole life, and they complain about something, and they can have the greatest wife or husband in the world, but they just like the drama and they like to create something that isn't there. So that's a hard thing too. So there's, like I said, in relationships, there's so many onion layers to peel back. What's real, what isn't real, what's somebody's psychosis or their mental breakdown and what's going on. But again, it comes down to it. You can only control yourself, and sometimes that control means time for me to get out. That's all it is. Figure it out. You know, I know there's people that will be by your side and support you, and if you don't have support, there are programs out there that will support people.
And the best part about it is, if you do have friends that will actually help you get back on your feet, mm-hmm. It does make things a lot simpler. And, you know, to get you back up and going back where you need to be and not feel so down about yourself. I mean, it's just so terrible watching people go through this. it's crazy. And I think like a lot more people need to be aware of this, as in the fact of, being manipulated and when to start looking and know when to leave.
It is hard. Me as a parent, if anything happened like this to my kids, they know that, okay, something's going on. I'm in a terrible situation. They know they could come be with me. They could come be with their mother. They're not alone. But that's the thing is we have to let our loved ones know that before they get into this situation. And some people don't feel there's a way out. And I always tell them, no matter who you're with, what goes on and how you feel, good or bad, I'm always there for you.
Exactly.
Something happened, you could come to me. I will not judge you or anything like that. Just remember, mom and dad are a safe place. Hopefully people have that safe place. I know there's some people that have manipulative parents where they may not feel that way, but it's so hard. I wish I could give the perfect answer, but it all depends, changes situation to situation.
True.
But, I had an old captain tell me when I worked in the Department of Corrections. He says to me, as long as nobody died or escaped, everything could be fixed. There's a solution to everything, okay?
Yep.
There's a solution to everything, and it takes our fortitude, it takes our knowledge, our wisdom, and our asking for help to find it.
And take the time to get it rebuilt sometimes as well, depending on what it is.
Oh, exactly. So, nothing's easy. If everything was easy, everybody'd be doing it, So, making a decision, especially a life decision when you decided to have a life with somebody, it isn't easy leaving. I've been through it. A lot of people in my life have been through it where they've had to make that drastic change where, hey, we bought a house and now I got to sell the house and now I got to relocate or something, or same thing with a job. You lose a job and you get that stressful situation. And unfortunately, a lot of these things change relationships. How strong of a base does the relationship have where it doesn't have that manipulation or anything like that? But sometimes stuff starts changing. Even when you're all the way in, your relationship's good. Unfortunately, sometimes things happen where I've had people, the relationship was perfect, but then a child passed away. And just depression and all that changes the whole relationship where they end up divorced, even though they were a perfect couple. It's just the way things go.
And then sometimes resentment gets involved with that. You could have done better, or I could have done better, and then it starts playing mind games with you, and it makes things worse.
Yeah. So the manipulation may not be right off the bat. It could be later on down the road. Relationships and them lasting a long time isn't easy. Again, you got to do the work. You got to communicate, and you got to know, what each other's all about, what goals they have, support those goals. So if you get into a relationship and they're not supporting your legitimate goals, not just these throw it out in the outfield and then hopefully it happens. No, if you're doing the work to get to that goal and they're supporting you and vice versa, you have to support them and communicate and be a team. You're a duo. You're a team.
Right. And that's one thing, I look for, and unfortunately, the girl that I was seeing passed away about 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we had that communication. We had it, we had each other back. We watched each other. We made sure nobody fell. We picked each other up and we ran. Communication to me is the key part of any relationship. And once you have that, and you can sit down and talk to each other and say, hey, I need this, you need this, work together to get it done.
Yeah.
And once you're on that same page, and some people don't understand this, but when you're on that same page, things fall together. They start to go. Things start to get better. It doesn't get worse. It gets better because you're working as one.
Yeah. You learn that each other's cheerleader. You got to cheer each other on, and you can't have jealousy. You can't have that manipulation and all that, you know, especially for like Stacia and I, you know, what we do in this industry and all that. We're always cheering each other on. Plus, we're both shamans, so we can't get anything by each other anyways. So. But
we know how shamanism works.
But you know, that's the thing is we love and trust each other, and we help each other with our goals, and that's why it works. And you know, it does help that I think we've known each other for lifetimes. So that's always that spark and that soul contract that you have with each other, and you have to abide by that. So.
And another thing, you know, a lot of people nowadays, you know, there is a time to get out of a bad relationship, and there's a time you got to make that decision.
Yeah.
But there's also a time that, you know, if one person's down and you know they're legitimately doing the best they possibly can,
yeah,
that's when you got to be with them. But when they make promises and open things and not following through with anything, mm-hmm. that's the time you need to bail.
It is. It even, you know, with your own children and stuff, if you say, hey, I'm going to be somewhere, be there, you got to do the same thing with your spouse, along with your kids and anybody that's part of you, or you make that decision to be together as a group or as a couple. But you got to make that commitment. You got to do the work, and some people find it's too hard. Everything's too hard. You know, people quit so easily nowadays. So, you know, and
some quit for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And other reasons they should have quit a long time ago.
Yeah, pretty much. You're definitely right on that. And I tell you, you know, when I was younger, you know, you don't make the greatest decisions sometimes, but you learn from experience. The more, sometimes when you make a lot of mistakes, one of two things are going to happen. You're going to let it eat you alive, or you're going to overcome it. Basically meaning, there's a good story, Thomas Edison, when he was doing the light bulb, and everyone's like, oh, great, we have light, we got these light bulbs and all that. But you got to realize he failed 10,000 times before it worked. Mm-hmm. If he quit, and then who knows when the light bulb would have been, you know, invented, or that light the way it is. I know other people did things, but he's the one pinpointed it on. But if you quit too early, you lose that opportunity to improve or to find the right path. You know, there's so many stories about that. Even Ube Iwerks, who was Walt Disney's partner, decided to take a $2,000 buyout, and then Mickey Mouse came along, and the next thing you know, he quit too early. He didn't believe, but you know, Walt was doing the work, but Ube didn't believe in it, and you know, you see the differences. There is a reason to leave, but sometimes you leave too early or anything like that. You never know. But again, if somebody says, I'm going to do this, and they're not doing the work to get there, then yeah, that's a red flag.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. Agree. We got a comment here with Nicole. I'm not picking on you, Nicole, but I got a comment I will make on this. She said, that's why I prefer to remain single as long as possible. Mm-hmm. You know, I've remained single for the last 3 years after my girlfriend has passed away, but you don't want to get set in your way so much for when somebody does come up to you and you end up pushing them away. Mm-hmm. To be able to and how do I say, to work together.
Yeah.
And not be so one-sided either.
Exactly. You don't want to close yourself off. You know, even, and we don't want to, we're picking on Nicole now, but it's okay.
I wasn't picking on her, but I mean, even I've been single for 3 years.
Yeah, if you feel complete, then good. You know, if you love the way you are and you're comfortable with who you are, just because society says you need to have a partner doesn't mean that, right? If you're comfortable in who you are, my aunt has been single her whole life, and she's happy. So, and you don't have to. You have to know who you are. If you know who you are and you're open to it, but yeah, you have better boundaries when you're single long enough because you know what you're about. And if somebody's
Yeah, and then you also know what to look for when you're looking for a new partner or a new mate, as in the fact of, because you've sat back long enough, you've made the repairs to yourself, and it's like you're not going to settle for less anymore.
Yeah. Sometimes that time alone is great because hey, if it doesn't work out, I'm not afraid to leave because I've been alone before. So
exactly,
and that's what I know.
Exactly, and
makes you a stronger partner too. So.
Most definitely, it took me a long time to accept myself and the abilities. Of course, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I definitely, I definitely agree with that being the way that I've been the last 3 years.
Yeah,
and fixing myself, putting myself back together, and then also, I had a time when my daughters actually moved out of the house, and that takes a toll on you too because you're not used to that.
Yeah.
Now you've got the whole house to yourself, and you're making all adjustments with that as well, and you gotta take a step back. You gotta breathe. You gotta start realizing you can do it. You can do this.
It is hard because when you have kids and you do the father or the mother that you're supposed to be for them, when they do leave, it's almost like part of your identity left with you, and you have to refine who you are, and then when you do find who you are, it makes you a better grandparent too when the grandkids start coming along. So
I ain't that far yet, but they're up there, and it's getting close probably one of these days. But one of them's engaged still right now, but
yeah.
But like I said, it's hard when kids move out and things happen, and now you're rebuilding yourself as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a whole thing. But you don't, to me, myself, and the advice I give myself, because I always hear people, I'm set in my ways now since I've been on my own.
Yeah.
Don't let that opportunity that if somebody does come up to you, don't let it slide by if you actually can have the great communication and be able to get along with that person, because it could open up a whole new world for you as well.
Well, it is. It's like I am in the paranormal world, and in my bio it says open-minded skeptic. So, I'm skeptical of certain things, but I'm open to listen and take in the situation and see if it's good for my boundaries or, that type of thing. So even like that relationship, that goes not just paranormal, it just goes for life.
Most definitely. Well, Thomas, we are at the top of the hour, and I always love picking your brain, especially when we get on some conversations, especially sometimes I pick your brain about serial killers as well, and I like doing that too. I've come to realize being single isn't too bad. I go and come, and I want, yeah. I can agree with that.
Ken, if you're happy with that, that's the most important thing. Like I was saying earlier, I don't know how much of the show you heard, but you have to love who you are. And if you love who you are and you don't need anybody in your life, nobody's telling you have to. So,
yeah, I definitely agree with her too. I mean, it's nice to be able to do what you want and come back and whatever, but there's always, like I said, leave that option open. Somebody may come into your life that could change your role.
Exactly, and that's the good thing is when you're comfortable with who you are, you're not out struggling and looking and pushing and finding the wrong person. So the right person comes along when we're comfortable with who we are and what we see in the mirror. And it'll come along, whether it be 6 months from now, 10 years from now, it doesn't matter. You have to be comfortable with who you are.
Most definitely. Well, Thomas, where can they find you besides on All Access Network Television?
I'm hiding, so I don't want anybody. I am on the Facebook, Thomas Patrick, also on Instagram and TikTok as Archangel of the Paranormal. I do a lot of different things on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and of course Thursday on All Access Network Television, the same network that Sean's on here. I have the show Profiled on at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And this week we'll be talking about mind control of cults, the big ones and all. And just that might help you with what we talked about tonight a little bit, some more depth. And thank you, Sean, for the pre-cultish type of thing and the manipulation coming up, and just more on the relationship side of things, which I think is important that people need to hear. Of course,
I do. That's kind of why, when I was thinking today, I knew you were coming on, and I see it happening to so many people, and maybe give them some advice. The best we can both give, is in the fact of, and pick your brain a little bit as well, because you're really good at what you do. And I'd like to see the world be a better place. I mean, so much bad going on, and we need to get back to where we should be.
Yeah, we gotta help the people that are getting their souls sucked dry and all that, and show them that there is a side where we could hold on to that energy and be a better person. Again, our website for Wardruna is going to be coming back up. We're making some changes, so it's off right now, but when it comes up, I'll let everybody know. But it will be www.wardruna.net. And again, Connecticut Paracon's coming up very soon, and it's going to be a big one. We got all kinds of cool guests coming, and join us. That's the www.paracon2ns.org right there. And we're excited about that. But Sean, I tell you, buddy, every time I'm on with you, you always ask great questions. It's always a good topic, and
I liked psychology, and I had it in college. I wish I could have took more. I wish at the time back then I could have took parapsychology, but I've learned more of that on my own with other people as well, and with my Reiki mentors as well, and the guy that shows me shamanism stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is, you being shaman, me being shaman, we feel that energy around us. We can do, understand a lot of things that's going on. We can feel the shifts at times as well.
Yep.
So
I think it saved my life a few times, and
oh yeah,
and you always hope you're there and help people make the right decision to change and save their own lives too.
And I think it's going to come a time, people's going to need each other again, and
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to trust certain people, to be able to understand them, and sit back and actually listen to what they say, and feel that energy, if they're right, they're wrong, whatever, and then sit down and discuss how to fix it, or come to a conclusion where you can be on the same page.
Exactly. Sometimes it just takes putting the phone down. Put the phone down, put the media stuff down, push the world out for a little while, and just have a one-on-one with somebody. It doesn't have to necessarily be your spouse or somebody like that, just anybody, your friend. Just put all the noise away for a little while. Go out in nature, go for a walk, take it all in. We're missing that. We're missing that communication and that connection. And I think we need to get that back.
I think with all the electronics coming into play, and like I said, the media, the manipulation,
Mm-hmm.
that plays a huge factor, with my generation to the next generation underneath of us, because they listen to that media, and they need to go back to the old school, like we were out running around, being with our friends, learning things firsthand, where they haven't.
Well, it is. There's tons of manipulation, especially in media. There's so many different types of psyops going on to get people to do certain things, and that's what advertising is, to get you to buy something. But there's so much manipulation that goes on, and it's just become to the point where they want to manipulate us so much that we don't recognize it in our own lives anymore. It just becomes, it's just what happens. No, it isn't just what happens. You got to know who you are, and know that, hey, I got to push this out. Who am I without people bombarding me? I get hundreds of emails a day trying to sell me something or trying to manipulate me into buying something. You don't want to say that. You know what your needs are.
There are flash ads.
Yes. You know what your needs are. There's wants and needs. Take care of the needs and all that, and the wants, they'll come along. You sprinkle them in there because, some days I want a nice ice cream sundae, even though I shouldn't. It's not a need. It's like, I want that. But, but when it gets something big and out of control and it happens all the time where your whole life turns into a want, it's not a good thing. Mm-hmm.
All right, Thomas, we're going to wrap her up, buddy.
Yes.
Thank you for everything. I appreciate everything you do. You give great information. You give some great advice. I love watching your show, and I like picking your brain and asking certain questions because, like I said, when you start going down your rabbit hole, I start going down mine sometimes, and I'm like,
well, I hope you get some sleep tonight then. I hope it didn't make you think too much.
No, but I like it. I like somebody to be able to talk to with that type of knowledge to be able to, we can manipulate and talk with it and understand it and start digging in holes.
Yeah. So.
That's definitely good. And like I said, keep up the great work. And
you too, my friend.
And like I said, I think you give some amazing advice, and I wish you the best of luck with everything you do as well. And thank you for coming on the show tonight. And I hope the ones that watched tonight, if you didn't catch the replay,
yes,
and definitely kind of think about some of the things you're going through. And
yep, remember, Arjuna's there for you if you need some more advice. I am a spiritual life coach. I do that. We have any assistance you need in any way. Our group will determine which path, and then you determine if you want to take it.
Yeah. So, also next week we have the up and coming Miss Morgan Caldwell will be on the show next week. I am looking forward to seeing her on the show. I actually met her at Broadhead here last night, and we're going to be talking about some interesting things and, how she kind of got into all the stuff she's getting into now. So it should be a very interesting show. And we actually had a really good conversation when we talked a little bit yesterday as well. So I'm looking forward to next week as well. Thank you again, Thomas, and hope everybody has a great weekend. And we will see you next weekend when Ms. Morgan Caldwell will be on the show.
Yes.
Have a great night. Have a great night, everybody.